Monday, January 22nd, 2018. I'm Michael Smith, and this is my second of the New Year video, so thank you for showing up. The government shut down, and it's all crazy. 2013, the government shut down. October 1st, it was about the time I remember Comet Ison. It was real significant for me. But it was about to be heading around Mars around that time, October 1st, when that government shut down in 2013, which they blame it all on Barack, using it as a legal or a defensive mechanism or some form of aggressive act towards making the politics work in his favor. So NASA was down, all government agencies were down, the parks were closed. They say that's not supposed to be the case, but it's already seeming like it is, so it's kind of odd. So that's just one of the facts I wanted to notate and document in all this. So mainly I want to talk about me. As much as I don't want to talk about me, I want to do it just to get it over with so you have an idea of who the hell you're listening to. So again, Michael Smith, me, November 30th, 1982. 10:51 a.m. on a Tuesday, which, weird fact, 777, my birthday, the day of the week, which has 7 letters, and 10:51 will all equal to 7, so it's kind of strange. Something I didn't learn till later in life. But I knew I was different growing up as a kid. I was always odd. I was strange. I would remember places I had been. I would talk about, being there with family. I would have 2 girls in one of my specific memories, where I was actually the father in a wagon, like horse buggy, and telling my mom all this. So it was just kind of like I'd have weird situations like that. I'd always be able to, finish sentences. I was feeling like I knew I was different in a moment of time that we were supposed to be doing something in. And more as time goes, is what exactly it seems like. There's something going on that we're supposed to be here for, that this is, whether it's a dream, whether it's just divine timing, I don't know which one, but we're here to live through this and experience it. And one of my things that I look back on when I reminisce about, feeling this way, was I remember looking at a CD player when it first came out, and we had just gotten one, and I was thinking, wow, taking information from reflective surfaces and it's creating music, or at that time it was Laserdisc as well, so it was just kind of like trippy to me, like, how is this possible? But then in that same thought, I also started thinking, like, what can I actually recreate if I was ever given the opportunity? If the world went to doom and gloom and nothing was around, what can I actually recreate? Just like if I were to time travel to go back to prehistoric man, what could I actually show them? Hey, I'm from the future. And in all reality, there wasn't much I could really do. So it was always one of those thoughts that stuck out with me, like, I have to learn as much as I can for that simple ability, that if anything were to ever happen, that I could recreate as much of normal living as possibly able, and maybe life wouldn't be so rough. But that's just another side thought. We always grew up poor. I grew up poor. I had no money growing up, really, but when my dad would come across money, his parents had money, so I don't know why we never had money, but they would send him money, and whenever he would get money, everything was in excess. Like, everything was so much in excess. We have 12 packs to, the door, like, all the way filled up, like, just, like, head high. Everything would be, he would buy cigarettes by the case. Like, he would have a case of cigarettes in the freezer, and it was just something that he did. Like, we just didn't see otherwise. When he bought meat, like, it was like the whole store of meat, it felt like, in one shot. So, although we were in low-income moments, he made it feel plenty, just because that's the way he was. He lived in excess. My mom kept the job of housekeeper for a period of time, up until she got sick, until she passed away in 2001. So she probably did housekeeping up until maybe the early 90s. I can't really say when, but she was sick for a good minute before she finally just took its toll. I was always responsible. Started working at 12 years old. I had to lie about my age. I said I was 14, did newspapers. From that point, I was a bus boy, worked in retail. I was, always like Al Bundy. I was working at Sports Authority in the footwear department, Foot Locker. It was kind of weird how it worked out. Like, I was always in footwear. But it let me get the newest kicks. I always had a lot of kicks when I finally did get to those points of life, but new shoes. But mostly it was customer service. I mean, I was a line cook here and there, telemarketing here and there, but it's always been customer service of some form. I did finally go to school later. I got my degree for business management in associates, but it was supposed to be transferred for computers. I was supposed to do computers for my bachelor's at ASU. But I kind of veered off because I got tired of school, but started going in the technical field, so I was happy, and then became a surveillance officer, surveillance tech, and then a blackjack dealer. Kind of weird things, weird outcomes. And even now, it's like I ain't really happy working, so I'm trying to create the business, whether it be this or other things, but that's why you're here, to figure that out. I have it figured out to a degree, but it's just a matter of presenting it to you guys. So I got in trouble a lot. I was always a troublemaker, testing my limits. Like, I was straight A honor roll student up until 6th grade. Like, school was too easy for me. I hated the fact that I was always so able to do well in school, and it was just a matter of tediousness. I didn't like the tediousness of just going to school, and I missed so many days. I hardly ever went. My parents allowed it because I was so like intelligent as a kid. But in 6th grade, I started spreading my wings and started veering off the other direction. I started getting in trouble a lot, shoplifting. It started with stealing cars, burglary. What else did I have? Drugs. Oh yeah, drugs, weed, coke, meth. I mean, everything with drugs. That was my thing. That was my forte. Then, so a lot of trouble. And I went to, all the detention facilities that were around the valley, around Phoenix, Mesa. From there, I just kind of like went a different direction up until I became 18 and became an adult. I didn't want to do it anymore. I was tired of that life. But before and during all of this, I always had intuition. Like, it's always been a part of me. Finishing sentences, surprise visits from those whom were thought about, thought-provoked phone calls, again, thinking about the person and they call. Synchronicities, just happening to be talking about something, and then all of a sudden someone's promoting that, or and I don't want to say nowadays, where the phone's listening and everything else, but everything just kind of occurred based off of a whim of a thought. And dreams, I was always a dream walker. I would be lucid in my dreams. I would have predictions in my dreams. I would have crazy events in my dreams. Dreams have always just been a part of me in a weird way, and still are, like, ultimately, that is the ultimate goal, is to master oneself or your dreams or a lot of emotions, but basically it's about mastering yourself. Something we'll talk about plenty. I'd always have the woulda, shoulda moments, like where I thought about of either leaving a scenario, doing something different in a scenario, and then not following through, but then dealing with consequences of not acting out on that intuitional whim. So it happens a lot to where I thought about going this direction and didn't, and went this direction, and if I should have went that direction, I would have been okay. Like, I wouldn't have got caught. I wouldn't have slipped over something, or whatever the case was. Like, I've had plenty of those, like too many to count. As a kid, I was always fascinated by magic, and I realized later in life that magic is one of the stemming arts of the occult. Like, that's where the occult is founded from, is the magic that was the foolery of tricking somebody into thinking that you had done and performed a trick. So magic, I found out later, was something explainable as to why I was guided in that direction, but that was something I was fascinated with as a kid. Magic, the art of being sneaky. Like, I love ninjas, but all things I think relate to later in life. So later I started tying to occult, new age, aliens, parallel worlds. So, almost done. Maybe not, tragic part of life is going to be what explodes you out into the realms of understanding and learning. Like, when you experience a tragic, that's going to be when you actually endure the physical stress within yourself to actually explode out, and you hit rock bottom of some form. You get tired of being in a position, you get tired of being in a place, you get tired of being treated a certain way, or missing this person that used to treat you that way, or whatever the case was. But you don't explode into growth without tragedy, unfortunately. But it's only tragedy in our minds. It's not tragedy. I have a couple flies going on, so if you saw that, sorry. I left the door open earlier. But if you experience the tragedy, you are experiencing the stress and tension in order for you to grow, and unfortunately, it just doesn't happen without it. My tragedy was everything was fine. I was the most spoiledest I could be. I was the only child up until 12 years old. My sister came along. I did more helping raise her than I did treating her like a sibling. You know, it was more like she was my own. But the tragedy is I lost my mom at 18. It was June 21st, 2001. Necrotizing fasciitis, which is a flesh-eating virus, and ironically, I just seen it last night on the news that some lady got it for the flu. But it was something that she had gotten, but they thought it was through her dialysis tract. Now, who knows where it exactly came from, but she realized it too late. I came home drunk one night, blackout drunk. I don't even know how I got home, honestly. And it was my own car, I'll tell you that much. And when I walked in, my dad tells me she's gone, basically taken by the ambulance. She's not going to make it. I immediately snapped out of my drunkenness. It was just insane how it worked because I was completely blacked out drunk and just remember the words of being told, which I don't fully understand how it worked, but it worked. I snapped back into sobriety and I just immediately went out to families and started telling them at 6 in the morning, you know, what was going on. I was so distraught. But that was the beginning to my path. From that point, you know, it was me and my mom raising my sister. I didn't know what was going to happen. And so from that point forward, it was part-time, almost full-time taking my sister on, you know, from 6 years old to 9 years old. Me and my wife. So then, as we are going and enduring this, my dad passes away 3 years later, which is not soon, but it is soon. And he passes away on Christmas. I have my sister, and when I'm trying to call my dad to take her back, he's not answering. So when I finally go over there, I find him on the ground. I have to bust down the door. We call 911, and he's already gone. It's too late. Rigor mortis is already there. So it was just kind of odd, you know, like both of my parents died in a mysterious kind of way where I don't understand fully. I didn't see it coming. There was never no preparation, and I'm not saying that's easier or anything, but it's one thing to go from an illness, but another thing to go from an illness just so sporadic and randomly for both of my parents. So that tragedy had to actually open me up to a whole like world of stuff, which I was and wasn't ready for. So the simple fact that I had to go through that, endure that, it created so much growth is ridiculous. Like I feel like I'm a 60, 70-year-old man inside a 30-year-old's body. It's just crazy. 35 if you want to get technical. So my whole life I always struggled with my race because I'm Native American, part white, but then I grew up in the Hispanic community. So I grew up around Chicanos and nothing but Spanish speakers, and it was just odd because I looked Spanish, or at the time, you know, more Spanish, and it was just like it wasn't working, like, because I didn't know the language. I had to kind of pick it up here and there, which I just, you know, I do better now, but growing up it wasn't so easy. So it always battled me inside. And then my parents, they were so introverted, like they never went out. Like I didn't ever get social interaction with anybody. All I knew was them. My mom Native American, my dad was white, and it was just they were so introvert. So it was all the way around. It prepared me in a different kind of way, but I'm grateful for the way it did prepare me because it gave me those ideologicals that don't get worried or wrapped up in the nonsense, basically, from the race to the religion to the things, the what you have, what you don't have. I mean, they never cared. There was never a care whatsoever within their world. And for me, that's what I grew into caring, was about all these materialistic things. And I had to come back to reality, in my opinion. So it's just like a weird full cycle experience. And that full cycle has helped me experience so much that I'm so grateful in the end for it. We grew up super poor. I mean, it was a one-room shack. I didn't have a room until I was 12 years old. That was basically it. I had a bad upbringing as far as not having things, but as far as having my parents and having the love and having everything, I technically had everything I needed, but I just wasn't appreciative of it then. So October 23rd, 2013, big fast forward, here I am. I think it was about, I want to say 21 maybe, 21 years old. And it was a crazy experience of a time because my wife was sick at the moment. She wasn't my wife then yet. And one night after just wanting to be out, we went out to Superstition Mountain, which is in Arizona if you're not from here, in the East Valley. And the mountain actually is notorious for wise tales or folk tales and all these myths about gold and the lost Dutchman and finding gold there, or whether it be Native American chiefs walking through and then coming out of other caverns, or all these different myths. But a lot of the myth also comes from aliens, that there's sky visitors and all those weird stuff. So one night, not experiencing any of it, it just kind of occurred. There was a flash of light, didn't know what it was, pulled over. And then when we pulled over, there was a light that just appeared, and it looked similar to a plane. Everything about it was similar to a plane until it came above us, over our head, and it was just silent as can be. Like, there was no plane. Like, there was no plane I've ever heard after this point. The shape of it was triangular. Like, everything about it was UFO. Like, it was insane. It was intense. And me and my fiance then left, and we were just in awe. Like, it was just me and her. The kids weren't there. We did go home and tell the kids because the kids were already teenagers at this point. But it was just something so strange, and that's kind of what trickled all of this into play. But before this, I was semi-related into aliens, Zecharia Sitchin, 12th Planet, getting into secret societies, Freemasonry, other different things. All these different connections started to be connected before I even knew they were connections. And then the alien thing happened, and from that point forward, it was YouTube. Like, YouTube just kept directing me in ways that was informational. It was so weird that synchronicities, but I don't consider them synchronicities anymore. I feel like everything was guided, and whether it be from my own intelligence or an outside intelligence, I was being guided. And that's the weird part, is you'll never really fully understand, and it gets kind of hazy and gray around there. But aliens became the obsession from this point forward. They already kind of were, but now they officially were, because I had seen my very own UFO, and I started learning everything I could about these different quote-unquote species and experiences, other UFO experiences, abductees, and I've always been intrigued in that, and it just went this whole wide array of directions, which I want to get into many different ways and different happenings on. But it let me start learning about numerology and the fact that, my numbers equaled the same of Jesus Christ, and that was a trip in that moment of time, and all these other things I have put on here. But they basically pointed me down the direction that was so intense and so life-changing that here I am today in front of you. But it was all because of guidance. Like, there was a guidance from somewhere, whether internally, externally, I don't know where per se, but that guidance is what I'm trying to guide you towards. Because if it can happen to me, it can happen to you. I was born and raised Catholic. Everything changed once the whole perspective changed. And what did it take to change perspective? It took an open mind and the willingness to change, because it took my own changing in order to start the process of being communicated with. And again, the communication, you don't know if it's coming externally or internally, but it will be coming. And one way or another, it makes itself known. And you'll either call it foreign and call it demonic, call it angelic, something, but you experience it already, and you consider it the form of the higher power that you talk to or consider yourself a part of. All things I want to get to. So already longer than I pretty much wanted. Hopefully you're still with me, and cross our fingers that everything still keeps on going, because again, every day I'm not really motivated to do these, but I'm being forced. I feel like I really got to for you, so I'm trying to do it for you. You guys have a great day. Thank you for tuning in again, and stay blessed.